Welcome to Ghostly. Since by the next time we record Ghostly, Game of Thrones will already be over, I thought we'd go around the table and tell everyone who you are and what house of Game of Thrones you'd most identify with.
Okay, so I'm Rebecca, and I most identify with House Stark.
Yeah? Wouldn't everybody identify with House Stark?
Right, and that's
most?
me. I'm everybody.
You're every woman.
Yeah, but I'm brave.
It's up to you.
I'm brave. I'm good at heart.
Like
right?
Sansa, huh?
Right? Like I totally
Arya.
love Sansa and Arya. I'm like a combination between the two.
Okay, well,
in my brain.
There are going to be some people that have never listened to or never watched Game of Thrones, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry for you guys. It's just going to be a couple seconds. Now we have a special guest. Mondo, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm Mondo, and I believe I like House Greyjoy.
All right.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Nice. Why House Greyjoy?
Mainly Theon, and I mean they like boats. I like boats.
Mm-hmm.
You do like boats, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to say that I thought you were probably going to be closer to House Baratheon because you're kind of a mixture of Robert and Gendry. Gendry because you like to work really hard, and Robert because when you party hard. And because you like to eat hogs.
Can I switch sides?
No, you can't. No, it's done already.
Well, Theon's a good man.
He is a good man. So is Gendry, though. So
all right. And I would probably say that I am Pat, and I am House... I'm going to go Targaryen.
Oh, you're wearing a House Targaryen shirt.
Yeah, that's why.
So that makes it easier.
That's why I'm going to go House Targaryen.
Yeah, well, you do like to be in charge.
Sure.
No, it's good. It's good. No, you have that fire in you, but
Yes.
and you've got a brave heart, but you are also very fair. When you run your classroom.
What about the Mad King? He wasn't very fair. All right. Anyways, this isn't a Game of Thrones podcast.
Okay.
If you would like to listen to a Game of Thrones podcast, I think the DVMPE network has a podcast about Game of Thrones.
Yes,
so
that's true. Okay, we should move
check
on.
it out. All right. So for this episode, we are bringing back Mondo. For those that don't remember, Mondo is right down the middle on his beliefs. Sometimes he sides with the skeptic ideas, and sometimes he sides with Rebecca's open-minded beliefs. So, Mondo, how have you been?
I've been good.
We are really excited to have you back on the show. One of the reasons that I asked you to come on is because you share my passion of researching Chicago history, and we've had a lot of great talks about H.H. Holmes.
Yes.
So when did you first discover H.H. Holmes?
Oh, man. That was, going back probably when I was a teenager. My mother had told me about him.
Yeah.
And she was like the only person I knew that actually knew about H.H. Holmes, the original Triple H.
The original Triple H. We also had a Triple H on our Winchester House episode. Didn't we?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But I know you used to, get the books that would talk about murderers and stuff, and you told me a lot of stories around the campfire.
Yes.
That was always good. So when did you discover H.H. Holmes?
I'm probably like a lot of people. I did not discover him until Devil in the White City.
Wow.
Yeah, I that when that book came out, everyone's saying good things about it, and it sounded cool. I had no idea what it was really going to be about, and all of it was a revelation to me of who this guy was. Had no idea that
and you're
he
a follower
existed.
of H.H. Holmes? Is that what you're saying?
Well, now I am after reading that book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I would not say I'm a supporter of H.H. Holmes.
No, I wouldn't say I'm a supporter.
I also discovered H.H. Holmes during Devil in the White City. And unlike a lot of people, I was more into the book for the other parts about the World's Fair than I was about H.H. Holmes.
Whereas I kind of skipped over some of the architecture parts.
What? That's the best parts of the book to me.
Well, I like some of it, but it got really
the books.
long.
The book, I mean, sorry. Okay, so I wanted to start this off by saying that I saw another random white garment for those that follow the show. It was at the train station. It was yesterday, I believe. And I'm thinking maybe this is some kind of sign that we'll forever be talking about the woman in white.
Yeah, no, you sent me a picture of it.
Yes,
and
I
it's
did.
another perfectly clean white, I think, shirt. I mean, again,
I think it's a towel in this one, but I could be wrong.
Well, we'll post the picture, but
yes.
It's one of those things where it's one thing to see a white garment, but for it to be clean, like not a speck of dirt on it, is weird.
And then I saw a comb in front of where we did Nerdy and Dirty every day.
Was it the same
Center
comb?
Stage? Yeah, it was. Center Stage Theater.
If it had been a different comb every day, then
I only used it once, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was fine. But no, I really think this is weird. This is happening. You ever seen just a white garment at a train station?
No.
Yeah, well, I see them all the time now, I guess.
Really?
Yeah, I guess that's my thing. So this is going to be a really good episode. It's got a ton of history, and I will admit there are some very spooky things associated with H.H. Holmes.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. When you first suggested this episode, I was like, yeah, I've never actually heard any ghost stories associated with Holmes. It's a creepy story, but no, there's actually several. Like, I'm not even going to get to all of them.
There is a lot of ghost stories associated just with Holmes, too. And then there are some that surround Holmes and his victims.
Yes.
I think that's the correct word to use for them, victims, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we've been getting a lot of new listeners. And I'm really glad that you all have found us. But I thought that because of that, maybe we haven't talked about what this show is trying to accomplish in a while. So maybe we should. Maybe we should bring that out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just, do you want me to do a run through?
Yeah, if you'd like to.
Oh, okay. So we're a debate, right? So our goal is we cover the history of the topic. And then I tell a ghost story, which is based on all of the kind of the sightings or things that people have reported, just kind of get us in the mood. And then I go through the different sightings and things out there and talk about what I think is true, what I think is maybe dubious. And then Pat and now today Mondo gets to join in on what you think.
And he's right down the middle, too.
stories.
So I'm really glad to have him on this show. We really believe that you should know all the details before you claim to be #Team Skeptic or #Team Believer. I would love it if everybody came in like Mondo and was right down the middle. And this way they could hear what we have to say and decide. But we are not really trying to change people's mind. We just want to give you all the information.
Right. We're never going to come to a conclusion on the show. That's for you, the listener, to come to your own conclusion.
Absolutely. And although I may joke around a lot, this debate is all in good fun. We generally like each other and like spending time talking about ghostly things. So we would do this even if we didn't have a podcast.
Yes.
This podcast is also supposed to be entertaining. So we hope you have as much fun listening to it as we have putting these episodes together. And I understand that this concept, this idea is not for everyone, and that's okay. I am a skeptic, but I'm looking for that one bit of evidence that will make me change. I have not always been a skeptic, though, and I am truly sorry if I offend anyone by my current beliefs. This is just part of the show. I really do not try to change people's minds when we're talking. In fact, I have a lot of friends that are believers. And in a lot of these events that we've gone to, the believers actually invite me back to events because I don't really try to push my ideas down their throat. So people have asked me recently, if you're a skeptic, then why do a podcast on ghosts? Right? That's a pretty legit question then, right? The answer is that, Mondo nodded, by the way. That's why I just kept on going. So nodding does not work on a podcast, though.
Sorry.
Maybe one day we'll do a video podcast for everyone to see you nod.
Cool.
The answer is that I am fascinated by the concept of ghost stories. And I thought we could offer you something that not many can, a look at both sides. So there are many podcast and internet radio shows that express one side or the other. Most are ghost believers and purely that. And we want to give you the information so that you can decide which side you fall on. And you can make up your own mind. And we really want to hear your conclusion. That's why we have a poll. That's why we do these kind of things where we ask you your thoughts. If you're looking for something that is less about the debate and more about believing, I would love to recommend a friend of ours that does a radio show and podcast. It's called Bob After Dark. It's a great show.
Oh, yeah. And he goes into, it's not just ghosts. Like, he'll go into fairies and gnomes and all sorts of weird legends and things that I had never heard of before. It's really
He's just such an awesome guy.
He's a really sweet guy.
He's got so much information, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're looking for something like that, that's who I would recommend. So we're not trying to convert anyone to our ways of thinking. We only want to make you think. That is my goal in this, is to make people think about stuff. But I realize that not everyone is open-minded about their beliefs. So we've decided to start putting times into our show notes. And this will give you the option to only listen to what you want to hear. It's like an a la carte entertainment. We just hope that you gain something from our show.
Yeah, I mean, we've been getting a lot of new listeners, so I think that people like the concept. I'm excited for it, and I always love to hear what everyone thinks.
Yeah,
and it's super fun, and I think it's unique out there in podcast land.
Right. As a listener and a contributor, what do you think, Mondo?
Definitely. I love the show, and the main thing that I love the history. I love the fact that you guys cover everything the way you do. And, the fact that you guys are debating it is awesome. I love both sides. And, I like to think of it from a different perspective, too.
Absolutely. And, that brings us to the next thing that are going to be our polls from the last episode. I think #Team Believer came out with great numbers for the last episode and our first time putting our poll on Facebook.
Yes, we've made the switch. We kind of had both the website poll and the Facebook poll open, and it turned out we definitely had a lot more votes on Facebook.
Yes, so I think Facebook is our platform.
Facebook is definitely going to be our platform going forward. And you know what? We would love to just to keep encouraging people to vote.
Yes.
And I think maybe we need to try to push the poll a little higher up in the feed a few more times, but definitely look for it. It's there. Please follow us on Facebook and vote after the episode.
How do they find us on Facebook?
They can search for Ghostly Podcast.
Ghostly Podcast is the place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on all social media.
On all social media.
Ghostly Podcast.
You got it. Okay, so poll results from Peshtigo, Wisconsin, which we did get confirmation from a listener that it is Peshtigo. Not Peshtigo, not Peshtigo, whatever.
Peshtiago?
Yeah, Peshtiago, that's my favorite one. Peshtigo. So 73% of the voters believe that it is haunted, and 27% say that it's not.
Well, that's on Facebook alone. We did have one single vote on the website that said, nope, it's not.
Okay, so maybe it's like 71 to 29%.
Yeah, it was a landslide victory. So congrats, #Team Believer. I think Rebecca did a great job coming out with the evidence for the Peshtigo fire episode, and I didn't really bring the thunder, I guess.
Well, it was a fun episode. There was a lot of good ghost stuff in there. So
it was. I really learned a lot. Mm-hmm. So I think it's time to get into the history.
Yes.
So
let's do this.
This is probably going to be our longest episode ever, just to let our listeners know in advance. There's a lot of history, and I'd like to cover as much of it as I possibly can. There is a limit. There are tons of books about H.H. Holmes. There is a ton of podcasts about H.H. Holmes that focus their whole entire podcast or whole entire book on H.H. Holmes. So there's no way I can cover it all in this one, but I want to tell you guys what the most recent stuff is about H.H. Holmes.
Yes, there's definitely some new stuff. And this is, again, the benefit too. We are putting those timestamps out there. So if you're someone that doesn't want to hear the history, if you'd rather just go right to the ghost stories, you'll be able to do that.
Just look in the show notes. So we picked today to do an episode on H.H. Holmes because May 16th was his birthday. And it's a day after we're coming out with the episode. Mondo, did you know that?
Nope.
Yeah.
I was unaware.
We actually wanted to do an H.H. Holmes episode about a month and a half ago, but then I looked up his, some information about him, and that was his birthday. And I'm like, nope, we have to wait. And we actually released information about it on the day that he was executed. think that'd be the proper word, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of the information that I'm about to give you comes from the book H.H. Holmes, The True History of the White City Devil by Adam Selzer. It's a biography of Holmes that was released in 2017. Definitely worth a read, although it's more of a history book than a story. So if you're looking for a story, it's not set out that way. But it is really good. So I haven't been doing the time perspective. I'd like to do a time perspective in here because I didn't fully appreciate the story until I really fit it into some time. And there's only a couple things I'd like to talk about. Most of the murders took place in the time of H.H. Holmes's murder castle or after that. So that's where I will focus our time perspective on. In these days, Holmes might have seen a couple of cars on 63rd Street, but that was a luxury for the very wealthy. Most travel was done by train or horse and buggy. Now, both me and Mondo used to live off of 63rd Street. I was a little further away, but so I'm sure you've been by the area where the murder castle was, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so have I.
Can you tell us about it? Because I've never been there.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, today, of course, everybody mentions it's the post office, but actually, you'll notice it is directly to the west of train tracks. And what they had back then was a lot, there was a street that actually ran where the post office is today. So when you look at a picture, typically we're thinking like the post office sits directly over the house, but it's actually over the street that used to be there.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, a portion of the post office, just to the west of it, is where the castle actually was.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when they talk about tunnels and things like that,
it's under the streets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. Thank you for that. So also too, I would like to say that telephones weren't even invented until 1876. And most homes did not have a telephone, so you couldn't just get on the phone to call someone and check in on them.
Yeah, that really will come into play as you tell the story.
Absolutely. So this made it an ideal time for these kind of murders to take place. Think about it. If someone went missing, it would take you a long while to even realize that they were missing. And Holmes took advantage of this many times by telling people that, these people went on vacation to Europe or they left town or whatever when they were actually murdered.
Right. Yeah. And there wasn't even really electricity in use then.
No.
And that lighting
it existed, but it wasn't.
Yeah. That
common.
was the main thing about the World's Fair, the 1893 World's Fair was, that's why it was considered the White City, because they were using electricity in such a large scale at that time to show everybody that this is the future.
Yeah, a lot of Chicago people wouldn't go out at night because it was so dark, because the buildings blocked all the moonlight from coming in, so you couldn't really see anything. So, that's why it became a big thing that Chicago was this dark city and they wanted to put lights. So the 1893 World's Fair became the White City then.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So here's the thing about the H.H. Holmes story. It's hard to sort through because even today it is filled with so much folklore. Some even made up by H.H. Holmes himself. I don't know if you guys knew this, but H.H. Holmes was a liar. Not just a murderer.
I had a suspicion.
You had a suspicion? Yeah, he was a liar, murderer, thief, just about everything. He actually said that he ran through the gamut. Actually, he said he ran through the calendar of crimes. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to say he ran through the gamut of them all. Hope I'm using that word correctly. Stop me if I'm not.
No, you're good.
Okay. So I'm going to start off with his early life. H.H. Holmes was born Herman Webster Mudgett on May 16th, 1861. That was a month after the Civil War began. So I thought that was interesting too. He went by many names. H.H. Holmes is the one that sticks the most. It was actually Dr. Henry Howard Holmes. That was his full name when he changed it. He was born in Gilmanton, New Hampshire to Levi Horton Mudgett and Theodate Page Price. That's a name right there, Theodate. He had 4 siblings and was born a middle child. His parents were devout, hardworking Methodist. His father was a painter, a farmer, and a postmaster. So there are a lot of stories about him matching up with our typical views of a serial killer, like torturing animals or being abused by his father. But all facts seem to point to that he was a good kid, actually. He always did what he was told, a good student that always attended church in his young life. He was kind of a loner, but had a charisma about him. I mean, he had to be, because he convinced a lot of people of things. He was a con artist. Even though he never looked people in the eyes because he had this genetic defect that didn't allow him to. He struggled to have people trust him because of that.
Well, but he must have somehow got them to by what he said, I guess.
Oh yeah, I think he had 4 wives at one time.
At the same time.
Yeah, at the same time. Yeah. He's the opposite of what we now know of as a serial killer. Serial killer was a very new term in those days.
I don't even know if did it exist in those days?
They were starting to.
Okay.
They were starting to call people that. A lot of what people have said that he did came after he was claimed to be the devil by others and himself. So although in his adult life he was a con artist and a bigamist, we already talked about that, people did mention that he had a lust of money even as a child. I even question if he was actually a serial killer or not. I don't question that he was a murderer, but that the term serial killer usually refers to a psychological reason for the killings. I believe his killings were all about money.
See, this is where I'm not sure, because I feel like you could still be considered a serial killer because he's killing over and over again. And I do think he took pleasure in killing, because he could have stolen money from people and not killed them.
Yeah.
So, it's not a typical...
But what you're questioning is the definition of serial killer, not the facts of this. So
absolutely. Yeah, no. Yeah. What he did, but the question is, so then what would we call him? Like a serial murderer? Like, I don't know, like what would be no. Maybe we need better definitions.
Well, we like to label things, and a serial killer has to do with a psychological thing. It's part of the definition of it.
Right, like he's not Ted Bundy, I guess, or Gacy, where the killing is the thing. Whereas maybe for him, the killing was definitely part of it, but it was about the money. But I don't know. What do you think, Mondo?
Yeah, like the killing was secondary. So I have to believe that he enjoyed it too, because that would be dessert. You could have taken their money and let them go, or done something and let them go. But
he did a lot.
He did that. But
he did a lot. He scammed a lot of people out of a lot of money, and he didn't kill them.
Right. Yeah, he just enjoyed it. He enjoyed getting one over on everybody else.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We don't know. We don't know. We can't talk to him, so we don't know.
That's true. And he lied a lot about
Maybe we can't talk to him.
What?
Maybe we can't.
Seance.
His grandfather died when he was 14 and left him with a piece of land. And also, this was at the same time he was engaged to be married for the first time at the age of 14.
What?
Yeah.
What is it with young marriage? We talked about this with Poe, right?
Yeah.
Like this young man. Well, he's 14 and getting married.
Most men did not get married that early.
Yeah.
But things were different then. I mean, a lot of people at the age of 14, well, a lot of men, because women weren't going to school, but a lot of men at those days, at the age of 14, they would drop out so they could help the parents, raise kids or have a farm or get a job, do something.
Yeah.
But he continued to go to school. Although he was engaged, the girl's parents put a quick end to this by sending his fiancée back to her hometown in New York. Womp, womp, womp.
It must have been the look in his eyes.
If they could look him in the eyes, yeah. At the age of 16, Holmes graduated from high school and took some teaching jobs in Gilmanton and Alton. Back then, you didn't really need a teaching certificate. You just went through the class and then you could teach it, right?
Yeah.
He married Clara Loverling on July 4th, 1878. So I think he was 17 at the time. They had met and began dating at a church social. There's stories around this, too, that somebody was coming on to her and he got upset and stopped that. But they had a son together, Robert. on February 3rd, 1880. Clara was devoted to Holmes at that time and spoke well of him. This was believed to be his only marriage for love, though. Although, I mean, of course, that's up to speculation because we don't know.
We don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm guessing he didn't stay with her, so...
Well, they were married his whole
was.
Life. I mean, the rest of his life, they were married.
So, okay. But he married, quote unquote, other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll talk about some of that. Yeah. I don't cover all of it, but we will talk about some of it. But he was, she did leave him. He tried to get a divorce. The divorce was actually, wasn't granted. And, he claimed that he thought that she had died. And he married 3 other women. So
there you go.
And yeah, that is something. It was around this time that he decided to study medicine. He did this because he believed he could make a lot of money as a physician, especially if he invented some kind of prescription medication or miracle cure. That was his first start of trying to get a lot of money. He first enrolled in the University of Vermont in Burlington. The faculty there remarked that he was an ordinary student, nothing odd about him, although he did seem really excited to dissect bodies.
Oh, okay. That might have been a red flag somebody could have caught.
Yeah. And while boarding at the school, there was one strange occurrence that happened. One of the faculty noticed a smell coming from his room, so she went in to investigate and was horrified to find that a body of an infant child was under the bed. So this was probably not a murder he committed, but a body from the class he was in.
Wow. Now,
he liked his homework.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I will say, though, at this time in history, I know in England, I guess maybe it was a little bit before this, but, there was a lot of grave robbing, to get bodies to use to do medical research. And it really wasn't it was scandalous, but it wasn't as scandalous, I suppose, as today.
In the next thing that I'm going to say, he didn't like Burlington and transferred to the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery. Michigan actually had a lot of bodies. They had some kind of policy in effect that they could have more bodies.
Okay. So he's like, I want to go to the body place.
I don't know if he did it for that or he just did it because he didn't like...
Oh, he wanted the bodies.
Yeah, probably. It was at this time that his marriage started having issues.
Oh, she was like, you just care about the bodies, not me.
And you have this smell.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You come home with
smell
this
like formaldehyde. There were reports that he was abusive to Clara, but this has not been confirmed. Some of the students that he went to school with after the fact say this. So it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
It's easy to come up with these things after the fact, Clara did leave him, though, so that could be some evidence of that. She took his son back to her family home. She said that she knew little of him after she left.
She noped out of there and lived to tell the tale.
Right? Yeah. One of few.
Yeah.
So he would teach at the school while he was attending the school. So teaching classes that he had already went to. And he did this to make ends meet. There were some weird reports of him bringing in body parts to talk about in class, but this seems not to be true. After looking at some of the evidence.
Oh, man, that would have been cool if it had been like you just walked in with like an arm.
It was a foot, actually.
Oh, okay.
It was a foot. Yeah. So the story goes is that he was with the doctor. The doctor was going to amputate the foot, and he helped him do that, and then he took the foot.
Oh, geez.
And brought it into class the next day. In a briefcase, probably, because that's where you'd put it, right?
Yeah.
No, but that seems not to be true. It seems to be all folklore. So Holmes said that it was while he was in school that a bunch of students came up with the idea of using cadavers, which those people that don't know, cadavers are dead bodies, to defraud life insurance, although he claimed to not have done this at the time. Well, he graduated in June of 1884, then moved back for a short time before moving to Moores Fork, New York. I think it's Moores.
Sounds good to me.
Moores Forks. It's plural.
Yes.
They have a lot of forks there in New York to be a physician and a school teacher. While he was in New York, there were reports that Holmes was seen with a small boy. but that this boy disappeared one day. There was no investigation into this, and it seems that it was probably his son.
The one that he had from...
Robert, yeah. His son, Robert. Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, meaning not that he killed him, just that like he was visiting
Robert
and then went
lived.
back to his mom. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, how would we not know if that had happened? Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So Holmes moved to Philadelphia then after that and got a job as a keeper at Norristown State Hospital. I'm not sure what a keeper is, but I know that gives them access to bodies a lot. I don't think we still have that position. But he quit after a few days. He took a position at a local drugstore. But while he was working there, a boy died after taking medicine that was purchased at the drugstore. He denied any involvement, but quickly left the city. Some say this was because he was already selling human remains and skeletons and was worried he'd get caught.
So could we just stop for a second really quick because you mentioned the miracle cure earlier and the medicine, which made me think of Miracle Max, by the way. That was my thought with the Princess Bride. But the idea of that someone died taking medicine after his purchase at the drugstore, that medicine back then was not what we're thinking of today.
No, people could go in and buy cocaine.
Well, and
chloroform.
It was made by oftentimes the druggist, you know what I mean? Like, or they would get like the raw product and kind of like put stuff together. And
so that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like, but I'm just saying like today, if you bought medicine at a drugstore and it was tainted and you died, it would be the drug company's fault.
Like Baxter or Abbott.
Tylenol, whatever.
Absolutely.
But like now, back then, no, it's like you mixed this. Like you did it.
They made their own concoctions.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so he very well could have accidentally killed that kid.
Put too much of something or whatever. Yeah.
So he got out of town and he went to Chicago in 1886, where he changed his name to avoid being linked with his previous crimes. Holmes found a drugstore on the corner of Wallace and 63rd in Inglewood. It was owned by Elizabeth Holton and her husband. I had seen his name a couple times, but I can't find it right now. So,
Mr. Holton?
Yeah, that's his name.
Oh,
how'd you know?
Yes.
So her husband was said to be both an elderly and sickly man. But the actual facts don't support this theory. Her husband was 4 years older than Holmes.
Okay.
And Holmes died at the age of 35. So, I mean, he was not an old man. And he was not sickly either. Holmes was offered a job at the drugstore. He worked hard and saved enough money to buy the drugstore. Although some people think that he murdered the Holtons, this was untrue, as they lived for many years in Inglewood. There's lots of records of them. The truth is, if anything, he probably just scammed them, like he scammed so many people by paying a fraction of the price in cash and then using what they called promissory notes for the rest. They didn't really have mortgages then.
He knew how to play the court system too.
Oh, he did, yeah. Yeah, he would often put up other people's lands, as the promissory note. He would say, yeah, well, I have partial ownership in this land, which he didn't. And that eventually caught up with them, but... So, anybody have anything to say so far? No?
How's he doing, Mondo? Is he telling the truth?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Holmes saw some potential in the lot across the street from the drugstore. I don't know if you knew that, too. That wasn't where the drugstore was originally.
Right.
It was across the street from there.
Correct.
Yeah. And went about purchasing it and drawing up plans to build what was to be called the Murder Castle. Dun, dun, dun. The Murder Castle was a 2-story building and was a city block long. The first floor had a retail space for a drugstore, a barber shop, a jewelry store, a restaurant, and a few other businesses. The second floor was set up to be living spaces. There was over 100 apartments set up on the second floor. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you. I know you're going to say about the third floor, right?
No.
Oh, okay. Go
ahead.
I
was just gonna say no. This is not something that I either. I didn't remember this from the book, or I didn't know it. That it was such a big thing. Like, because when you were just talking about it being, Mondo, about the like on the street plus the thing, like it's a city block. Like that's huge,
was a block
and
long,
that there were a bunch of other businesses in there.
Yes.
Like when I picture the Murder Castle, I picture like a house. or
Yeah.
like a slightly bigger house, and then like it goes up, and it's like looks
No,
like a castle.
this was huge.
But this is like a city block, and it had
City
a
block.
bunch of other businesses and whatever. And then, yeah, okay. So this is okay.
Yeah.
I have a different visual in my head than I had before. So.
Is that what you knew, Mondo?
Yeah, they had jewelers that were
Yeah.
downstairs as well as other businesses, I believe.
Yeah, and none of these people knew what was happening.
Well, they might have towards the end. They might have.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't talk about that, but yeah.
Yeah.
They might have. Yeah, actually the jewelry store, I believe, he might have killed the wife of the jeweler.
Okay.
And that was during an abortion that they said. He performed an abortion, and he said that he accidentally killed her.
Accidentally.
Yeah. Well, that I believe, but she was his mistress, though.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about that. But anyways, moving on.
Yeah. Also, too, I was going to mention, when you think about him having all these tenants,
Yeah.
and the guy is known for scamming people for money.
Yeah.
It's like, it seemed like he had money coming in left and right,
Yeah.
but where was it going? Because he wasn't paying anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even mention
that's
in my
a really
report.
Interesting
I don't even
thought.
mention in my report that he had like 3 other businesses too.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it wasn't until news broke out that the World's Fair was coming to Chicago that Holmes decided to build a 3rd floor onto the murder castle, which would be a hotel for the World's Fair. Although a lot of reports say that it was never finished. So this is something that's also a lot of folklore about it, that, he would meet women at the train station and convince them to come stay over at the hotel. Well, it might have been the residence, but it wasn't the hotel part of it.
Yeah, and
Gotcha.
that was kind of easy too, because most hotels were downtown.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know where the World's Fair was, it was pretty far on the south side.
Yes.
So for people to travel from their hotel every day to the World's Fair, they had to take a train from downtown and all the way to the south side to where the World's Fair was,
which was 3 miles from the murder castle.
Okay, and
so you could definitely walk that.
Yeah, and the murder castle actually wasn't called the murder castle.
No,
it was.
Yeah, no, he didn't choose to call it the murder
he didn't advertise
castle.
that.
Yeah, it was the World's Fair Hotel.
Well, when he was talking about putting the hotel in, not
Right.
at first, it was
Right.
just the drugstore.
Yeah,
Right.
But still,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah, it was like,
But
he,
it never fully opened, so it's not listed on anything as that.
right. He just marketed
Yeah.
it as that, and then if you're going to meet somebody, some girl that's never been to the city at the train station, I mean, what better way to lure them over to there by telling them they get to stay at the lavish World's Fair Hotel?
Yeah.
Well, and remembering too back then that the World's Fair lasted how long?
Like 3 years, right?
Yeah, they put
It was multiple years, right?
or was it a year?
I think it was 1 year.
Okay.
The 1933 World's Fair lasted a little longer.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it lasted 3 years to me. though.
Well, it took them years to build it. And
Yeah.
it's like you didn't just build this thing and then have it run for like 2 weeks.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was huge. And so when people would come to visit the World's Fair, it wasn't just for like necessarily just a weekend back then, because it took a lot of money and time to travel. So you were going to plan to stay
Yes,
for
absolutely.
a while. Yeah.
So it was named the Murder Castle. There was a lot of different reasons why people nicknamed it the Murder Castle. One of the reasons was because many of the rooms were outfitted only with a locking mechanism from the outside of the room. So meaning people could be locked in the room.
Yeah. So tip, just a tip, general tip. Don't rent a room that only has an outside lock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Just a thought, throwing it out there.
It also had a giant furnace in the basement, which Holmes used to burn his victims' remains, as well as vats of acid and gas lines hooked into some of the rooms, and a lot of soundproofing.
Yeah. Don't rent a room at a place with a vat of acid downstairs.
Yeah.
Another tip.
The murder castle had chutes installed all over the castle to drop things from every floor to the basement. Things like bodies, maybe.
Oh.
Now, here's the thing, though. I don't know how many murders actually took place in the murder castle. It was not many.
Well,
It
we
was
don't
not as
know.
many-
He was really good at getting rid of evidence.
We're going to talk about that, but I do not believe that there was as many as what he claimed and what people have claimed. To build the castle, Holmes would hire contractors and never pay them, and they would quit or he would tell them to leave, and a new crew would be brought in. So nobody really knew every one of the plans. He came up with the plans himself.
So similar to Sarah Winchester, but she kept the same crew.
Yes.
And paid them.
Yeah, they were on staff 24/7 for
Yeah.
her. When Holmes was eventually arrested, there was not much evidence found at the murder castle. So that's why I say I don't know how many murders actually happened there, although the design alone was used as evidence against him. It is reported that because Holmes had knowledge of how to dissect bodies, that he used to kill his victims and sell their skeletons off. That's why he had vats of acid and lime in the basement of the murder castle. Nobody is really sure, though, how often this really happened. But it is believed that it would have been more had the hotel on the third floor had been opened up. So they believe that that was more his plans than what he actually did. It was hard to get rid of all these skeletons. So the truth of the matter is it probably was not a good plan for him.
I did double check, and the World's Fair ran for only about 6 months. It opened May 1st of 1893 and ended October 30th, 1893.
Wow, okay.
So, yeah, I suppose
still,
if you...
6 months. I
Yeah,
mean.
6 months for him to lure people in, and, that would kind of make sense. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, there were
that
also a
he
lot of
didn't-
people moving to Chicago.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, it left Chicago devastated, too, when the World's Fair was gone. It boosted up the economy so much, and it dropped down like a roller coaster ride. So, I'm sorry, but we really don't have time enough in this episode to cover all the history of H.H. Holmes. We'll post a poll question, though, on Facebook asking if you'd like a special added episode on just the history of H.H. Holmes. This would be an added episode and not interfere with the regular ghostly episode every 2 weeks. And I'd love to talk about each of his murders, but I'm going to take a huge jump here because we really need to talk about his conviction and execution, though. So if you want that special episode, just hit the yes in the poll, and that will probably be out sometime next week.
Okay.
What eventually led to Holmes being caught and tried was that he was making a lot of money taking out life insurance plans on people and then presenting bodies. Some of these were the actual bodies of people that had the insurance policies, but some were faked. If he could find a body that looked like the person. The odd thing is that you could take out life insurance policies on people without them knowing that you did it, especially in those days. It has happened in more recent times, but usually this is a business that takes out a life insurance policy on their employees.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's come up a couple times in the last 10 years. So I didn't know that. And after that was one of those fascinating things to me. It's like you could take out a life insurance on somebody and cash it in without anybody knowing that you had that life insurance policy out on
Yeah,
them.
that's not a good policy.
It's still currently you still can with some insurance agencies.
Really? I thought you had. Well, you have to
Now
get
you
like
need
a
to have their
signature.
social.
Oh, yeah, but like that's information you can get. I mean,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
back then you didn't need any of that.
Right. There was a interesting case that happened in New York in the 30s, I believe, and it had to do with the guy by the name of Michael Malloy. And he was basically like the town drunk, and the people at the bar took out a life insurance policy on him.
I've heard this. Yeah.
And then once they had the life insurance policy, they did everything they could to get him to drink himself to death.
Yeah.
But that didn't work.
Yeah.
So then they began kind of helping him out a little bit by putting antifreeze in his drink, thumbtack sandwiches, all kinds of things.
Nice.
They even dumped him in the river, and he kept coming back for more. And
wow.
he was drinking them dry. So eventually they ended up gassing him to death.
It
and
sounds like a
finally
friend
worked.
that we had before that fell off a third story.
Their porch and got up and went back up there and fell off again.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But anyways, I'm sorry to go off on a tangent here.
Yeah.
So he, so Yeah, you can take out insurance policies on other people. He was convicted of a minor crime of selling mortgaged goods in St. Louis, but was quickly bailed out during this, probably by one of his wives. He would actually travel with several wives, too. During this time, though, he came up with a plan to swindle an insurance company of $10,000, which doesn't sound like much nowadays, but that's $300,000 in today's money for him back then.
Wow.
Yeah, so he asked a fellow inmate, Marion Hedgepath, to help him find a lawyer that would support him in this. He promised to pay him $500, but never did.
Surprise.
Yeah, right?
Oh.
This plan was to fake his own death. When a body turned up to the insurance company, they became suspicious. This was the beginning of the end for Holmes. So he got his partner in crime, Benjamin Peitzel, to agree to fake his own death. The plan was to have his wife claim the $10,000 and split it with Holmes. Holmes might have had some different thoughts to that plan, though. Holmes was supposed to find a body that looked like Peitzel and make it look like he died in a fire, which was something legitimate that he could do. But Holmes decided instead to kill Peitzel and set it up where his wife would claim the money, and then he would kill her and her children first. Holmes thought of everything in this case. He knocked Peitzel out and then set him on fire. He used chloroform after the body was burned in case he got caught. It would exonerate Holmes by saying that he committed suicide. It was a common way for people to commit suicide back then because you could buy chloroform. I don't think you can go buy chloroform anymore.
I don't know.
Maybe on Amazon. And Amazon, if you'd like to sponsor us, we are available. Just putting it out there. Except for chloroform. Holmes actually collected the insurance money on this one and then wanted to get rid of everyone that knew of his plan. He convinced Peitzel's wife that she would meet up with Ben in London, but the timing was never right for the meeting. He said that first he would reunite the kids with Ben, and then they could all be together. So he took 3 of her kids and eventually killed them, but told the wife that they were with Ben. It's sad, the children wrote regularly to the mother until 2 days before they were killed. And I've actually read some of the letters, and they are, really the kids are just sitting around bored.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, and then they were like, Howard's gone. Howard was one of his kids. And but they didn't make it seem like it was a bad thing, so they must have thought that Howard was with Benjamin, their dad. Finally, things catch up with Holmes because he never paid Marion Hedgepath. Hedgepath went to the police and reported Holmes' plan. So a Philadelphia detective named Frank Geyer was assigned to the investigation. As the investigation went underway, they realized that 3 of Ben's 5 children were not with their mother, and the mother was also moving from city to city. This was very suspicious because this is not typically what would happen when a spouse dies. So they started to really focus in on Holmes, and it was not easy because of his many name aliases. They linked him to 2 important houses that he rented, one in Detroit and one in Toronto, and found remains of Peitzel's children, as well as drugstore reporting to have sold Holmes under different names, chloroform, and various other things. This led to a call out to the Chicago Police Department that investigated the murder castle. They were shocked with the layout of the castle, and the newspapers pushed this story to the front page news after his arrest. The Pinkerton Detective Agency was hired to track down the location of Holmes. I used to work for Pinkerton, actually.
What? I did not know that.
Yeah, I have a Pinkerton badge, too, someplace.
What?
Yeah, and I wasn't a detective. I was a security guard, but Pinkerton was also hired to protect Abraham Lincoln.
I was just going to say, that's how I know him.
Yeah, they did such a great job with him.
Well, they did, actually.
They were off that day, actually. They eventually found him in Boston on November 17th, 1894. He was arrested for the crime of being a horse thief. But they used this just to detain him because they knew that there was more. They had a lot of questions about Peitzel. They didn't know if Peitzel was a fake body or the real body, and Holmes kept going back and forth on his stories with this. But they knew that they really needed a confession as there was not as much forensic evidence back then.
Well, yeah, there was no DNA or anything.
Yeah, you couldn't just DNA check the children. And stuff. Many claims have been made that Holmes had a bunch of torture equipment set up at the murder castle. This was probably all fabricated by the media and led to even more folklore about who Holmes was. But citizens were outraged by the stories. He was the talk of the entire country. It was America's Jack the Ripper, only he was caught. Holmes originally wouldn't confess to any of the crimes, but as more and more evidence of his crimes came out, he eventually confessed to the murder of 27 people. The problem with the confessions, though, is that some of those people either couldn't be linked to Holmes or were actually still alive.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so some people have put the death count as high as 250 people, but we can only really confirm 9 murders. This includes the 3 members of the Peitzel family, or 4 members of Peitzel family, including
Benjamin.
Yeah, so there's only 5 other murderers that can be confirmed that he did kill. Holmes was a liar and wanted to sensationalize his crimes, knowing that he would be put to death for killing Ben Peitzel and his 3 children. He made a deal with the Hearst newspaper for $7,500 for his confession and wanted to give them a story of a lifetime. I believe this also led to a lot of the stories that surround Holmes, but can't be proven or are just not accurate.
Once again, I just have to mention he's going to have, he makes a deal for $7,500. So again, he's got money coming in.
Yeah.
Where's it going? He's not going anywhere. He's in jail.
Well, I'm going to talk about that in a second. I wasn't going to say exactly this, but I was going to tell you what the money was going to be going for.
Uh-oh.
So on May 7th, 1896, H.H. Holmes was hung at Philadelphia County Prison for the murder of Peitzel. Holmes remained calm up until the moment of his death. Despite this, he asked that his coffin be contained in cement and buried 10 feet deep. He was concerned with gravediggers because he was one. And also, there's a belief that he was going to try to have another man impersonate him and die for him. That's where that money would have went to. Rebecca will probably talk more about this, and I will add what my thoughts are of some of the facts at that time. In traditional hangings, usually the person dies because their neck breaks when the body is released from the trap in the ground. This did not happen with Holmes. He was strangled to death, and his body was seen twitching for over 15 minutes before being pronounced dead 20 minutes after the trap had been sprung. Going back to the murder castle for a second, before Holmes' execution, there was a fire at the murder castle on August 1895. This fire took out the 3rd floor, which was not fully operational. The only room that was completed was Holmes's office. The castle remained mostly intact until the post office took it over and tore it down in 1938. I'm sorry that I did not include many of the details of his murders, but as I said, I am willing to do a special episode just on the history of Holmes. There are many books about Holmes, as well as several documentaries that spent hours talking about Holmes, and we just don't have that much time. If we want to keep the episode at a reasonable listening length, which already... this is going to be our biggest episode ever.
Well,
longest.
I think he deserves it, though.
Yes.
Yeah. Can I vote right now?
No, you cannot.
You can vote right now.
No, you have to hear the debate first.
Well, but you can vote. No, vote on.
Oh, yes,
that
yes.
we want.
Yeah,
you
I would
can
like.
vote.
Yeah, I would like to place my vote right now.
And that's no?
And no, I
I'm just teasing.
I would like to have more H.H. Holmes
Yeah.
featured on Ghostly Podcast.
Well, great. I would like that. We usually take a break after the ghost story, but I think since we're over 50 minutes now, I think we should take a break now.
Okay, let's do it. When we come back, we'll tell a ghost story.
And debate and do all kinds of fun things.
Yes.
It'll be great. See you guys in a minute. Hey, Rebecca, guess what?
What's that?
Well, you know how we want Ghostly to not only tell and debate great stories, but also to give back to those in need?
We do.
Yeah, well, I've discovered this new app called Podcoin that lets you donate to charities with the currency you earn just for listening to our podcast or any podcast.
That's awesome.
Yeah, on Podcoin, you earn their digital currency, Podcoin, just for listening to podcasts.
That sounds easy.
It is. You can then donate your Podcoin to charities who will get real money donations. And you can also choose to save your Podcoin over time and exchange it for other rewards like Amazon and Starbucks.
That's great.
Who doesn't like Starbucks?
I hope no one.
Yeah.
Because I love Starbucks.
Yeah, they'll give you gift cards right
Cool.
there.
And you could donate those gift cards too.
You could, yeah. So download Podcoin in the App Store or in Google Play and use our special code GHOSTLY to receive 300 Podcoins just for checking it out.
Awesome.
Yeah. Rebecca, how about that ghost story?
All right, here we go. So let's set the scene. You've made it to the big city. You are so happy to have been born a young woman at the turn of the century America, where things are really starting to change. There's a women's building at the World's Fair, and women no longer just have to stay in their small town and hope to get married. Now you can move to the big city, or at least visit it, and have some kind of excitement and maybe even earn some of your own money. Maybe even meet a more sophisticated kind of man. And you do. He's dashing and smart, a doctor, and he's talking to you, telling you about the wonderful, safe hotel he runs that's close to the fair, and maybe he'll even take you there sometime. Just come and stay with him. You move into a small room. Everything in this place seems odd, but strangely enticing. Twisting and turning, under construction constantly. But there's a bustling and newness to it, and big city life all around you. So you don't notice the odd looks he gives you. Instead, you believe his lies about how much he likes you and wants to help you, take care of you, sweeping you off your feet so much that you sign whatever paperwork he asks you to sign. Then one night, you hear a click behind you when you close the door to your room. You try to open the door, but realize that it locks from the outside. And then you hear the hissing. You are suddenly struggling for breath. The last thing you hear is laughter. This story repeated itself many times at H.H. Holmes' murder castle, and when the girl was dead, he sent her body to the basement to be destroyed. A basement that still exists to this day, even if a new structure has been built over it. Those that work above it know the stories are true because they still hear the screams and feel the fear of that place.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have some things for you to sign too when we're done.
Oh, I see. Yes.
If you're willing to sign it. I mean, I'm sophisticated. I'm not a doctor though.
I see. As one, a letter to my parents saying that I decided to go traveling to Europe.
Yes.
And another one is a life insurance policy.
Well, I mean, that's just formality for being on Ghostly. Mondo signed it.
Oh, okay.
It's a thing to do
Okay.
when you come on Ghostly.
Yeah, you have to sign the waiver. All right, we ready for our debate?
Yeah, let's do this.
You know, I'm going to preface this with I don't know how much I could really debate on this story.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll see as we go along.
So, like I said earlier, I didn't realize how much ghost or haunting stories that there were associated with Holmes and that around him. So I'm going to start with the one, I guess that would be maybe most known or most popular in some ways, which is the haunting of the castle itself, right? So as you mentioned, the castle burned down.
Yes.
Not too long after he was caught.
No, that's not necessarily true.
Well, it was before he was executed, though, right?
Not it burnt down.
Well, oh, right.
There was a fire.
There was a fire.
But it left most of it intact.
Gotcha. Well, it's interesting because some places say that it kind of gutted the place. So
yeah, that was the old evidence.
I see.
The new evidence suggests that, no, it was intact until 1938 when the post office decided to tear it down.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I don't think it changes your evidence.
I was just going to say, whatever. There was a fire there, and there's a lot of conspiracies as to who set the fire. There were two men that were seen, and but they don't really know if they were trying to cover up evidence or actually just upset with what was happening. But regardless, right? so eventually, like you said, in 1938, they built a new building on top of the space. But it's said that the basement is still there. And as Mondo mentioned, the tunnels and things that are underneath there are still there. And I don't know about any of the equipment. I would assume that they got rid of like the vats for the acid or whatever, like that those aren't there, but I don't know. But anyways, so people report feeling death and dread when they go by this location, so much so that they cross the street. And supposedly many dogs won't walk in front of it. They kind of force their owners across the street. So the quote I have is, passersby, there it is, who walk their dogs past the new building claim that the animals would often pull away from it, barking and whining at something they could see or sense. It was something that remained invisible to their human masters, but which was terrifyingly real to the animals.
Okay.
So, I don't know. I mean, that seems...
Do you mind if I go first and then you can go? So, what I would like to say about this is, first of all, really good points there. I'm going to talk about the dogs first.
Okay.
Because that is something that really rang out to me in the story there. Dogs do have this ability to be able to sense where bad things have happened. We saw that with the St. Valentine's Day massacre.
Yeah, that's true. Last time Mondo was here, we had a similar...
Yeah, he's the dog expert. So he's the dog whisperer. So, they do sense these kind of things. And I used to have a dog. His name was Buford. Mondo remembers.
And Max.
Yeah, well, Buford was the one I was going to talk about, though. I would take my finger and point it like a gun, and he would instantly get mad at me for that. He would, try to attack my hand then when I would do that. What does he know about a gun? Has he ever seen a gun? And do my fingers really look like a gun to him? It's like, I don't know, but dogs sense these things are bad for some reason. I don't know if it's a ghostly thing so much as it's like horses get creeped out by certain corners of their barn or something like that. They get spooked. I think dogs get this way too. As far as the people having these feelings, I don't know if that's so much ghostly as it is more that they know what took place on that property. And as Mondo said, the property moved. The property, where the post office is probably one small corner of where the actual murder castle stood. And the tunnels underneath, it's not uncommon for these places in Chicago to have tunnels underneath. A lot of these places did. They would transport liquor that way a lot of times, especially during during Prohibition days. That was a big thing for Capone. A lot of the places were all tied up. So I don't know. It's a very interesting point, though. I want to say that, but I don't know if I really believe that they're really hearing screams or whatnot. That's the skeptic in me, though.
Well, what do you think, Mondo?
Okay, so originally the building burned before he was executed. So I believe that was 1895.
Not the whole building, though. Only the
Part
third floor
of the building burned. And then it sat there for almost 40 or just over 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it's finally torn down.
Yes.
So you mentioned dogs may smell something or sense something. I mean, I don't know if they could smell a building that was burnt and sitting there for 40 years. But I mean, how many places do you know that are burned and, usually they're torn down within a couple years. Yeah. It's not going to be that long, but 40 plus years, something standing
That is something. I learned something when we did our hands-on paranormal event, which you could see on YouTube, just promoting our YouTube channel again, where Chicago doesn't like to remember these kind of things. So we tear down all those buildings associated with death or mobsters or anything like that.
Oh, yeah, always. They're gone. We don't want to, they need to go. People, it's just, that's the spot where it happened.
Yeah.
So,
well, just to continue on a little bit with this, so it's not just people on the outside that will make this claim. Supposedly employees will also make claims that they
Yeah.
feel that sense of dread, and that they don't like to go downstairs, obviously, and that they can hear the screams of
that's
the
what I
people
was.
that
That's what I was speaking to.
Holmes tortured. Yeah, well, I hadn't mentioned it yet, so I just wanted to make sure I put that
Okay.
out there.
Usually there's something associated with most post office workers. I think they have a name for it. They say going postal.
Yeah.
So they don't seem to be very happy to begin with. Something is bothering them, and they don't like
Maybe.
stairs.
Sorry if you work at the post office and you listen
I was
to
going to say, I
Ghostly.
think they've worked very hard to get rid of that.
And they go up and down stairs all the time.
That
and-
image of the
They
post
do,
office.
yeah, in shorts. Yeah. So yeah, the basement might not even align up with what the original basement was. So I don't know. I haven't talked to any of these people that work there, so I can't tell you firsthand what I really feel about that. I mean, I can only tell you that my feeling is that this just sounds like that they are thinking of the stories that they've heard about the murder castle.
So we've got one more
Okay.
about the castle.
Okay.
Which I have to give the credit to Pat for finding this
Yes,
story.
I
And he
did find
actually,
this.
told me about it, which is, pretty big of you.
I
to
found
do that.
evidence supporting ghosts.
Exactly.
So-
So we'll say that.
Yeah.
Okay, so on March 7th, 1914, the Chicago Tribune reported that Quinlan, who you talked about right in
didn't
the
talk
history.
about him.
You didn't? Oh, okay.
No.
I'm sorry. I thought that was... Anyways, he was a former caretaker
Yes.
at the castle. I mean, I'm guessing maybe that was something, like you said, it was empty for a long time. So maybe he was a person that was taking care, kind of night watchman kind of thing.
Well, I think they actually wanted to do like tours of the thing. I think that was the original idea.
Well, that's the other thing. If you're not going to tear it down, let's make money on it.
I think they were going to, and I think that's
yeah.
the reason why they hired him.
That could be. Well, so he died by suicide, taking strychnine, which sounds awful.
Actually, it is the fastest way to kill yourself.
Okay, well, yeah, let's. Okay,
Yeah.
Still awful.
that's
Yeah.
still bad. I think that. What was that? Well, I'm going to go off in other podcast land, but there
Well,
was
spies used to carry a pill.
Yeah.
That would be. Yeah.
What was that? Oh, the really popular NPR podcast with the guy down south. Pretty sure that's how he. Well, I'm going to spoil a podcast, and I don't want to do that. Okay. So his body was found in his bedroom with a note that read, "I couldn't sleep." And his relatives claimed that he had been haunted for several months and was suffering from hallucinations from working at the murder castle. So, what do we think?
You mind if I go first?
Oh, sure.
So, what I really feel is, yes, I feel he was haunted.
Okay.
I'm going to say that. I feel he was haunted, but I feel that it was not by a ghost. I feel he was haunted by a psychological thing, that he was in this spot for so long and he couldn't sleep because he was burdened with the idea, with the emotions of that there were several killings in this place, which, as I said, I don't know how many killings actually took place at the murder castle that was designed for that, because there's only 9 confirmed killings and 4 of them we've already talked about. So there were a couple done there, but I don't know how many. But I think just the concept of it, the idea that there could have been 250 people killed there, that probably spooked him and probably haunted his dreams. So I don't believe it's an external, I believe it's an internal haunting of himself.
What say you, Mondo?
I think that I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I have to say, I think that's a good point. Because nowadays we're looking at it as far fewer people that were killed by Holmes, but back then people were reading the worst and believing the worst, from what they were hearing in the papers.
From Holmes himself, too.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you could think that something like that took place, and sure, that would definitely haunt somebody. And if you're that close to something.
Yeah,
So
I don't know. I
you may
guess
wanna
it
take your own
seems
life.
extreme to me that you would be working at a place, and you might be weirded out, but why would you take the job if you were going to be so weirded out that it would lead you to kill yourself? So I don't know. To me, I feel like there might be some external factors, but I guess that's up to the listeners to decide.
I went 3 days without sleep once. 3 solid days. I know people say I couldn't sleep for weeks, but they actually do sleep a little bit in that time. I did not sleep for 3 days, and I will tell you, it messes with you. I had physical problems at that time, like my arms were hurting and my head was hurting, and I couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to spend months of not being able to get a solid night's sleep.
Well, but again, what caused him to not be able to get that sleep? That's, I guess, what's the up to the listener to decide, because we can't go back and really investigate. So either he saw things or heard things that made him not be able to sleep, or it was what he imagined. So
true. I'm gonna go with that. It was an inside thing. It was a psychological thing on his part. But we can't really look back at him and ask him questions now.
Yeah. All right, ready to go on to our next. So we have the castle, right? Supposedly haunted. The next thing I wanted to bring up is a story that you actually had mentioned, which is that supposedly Holmes did not actually die at his execution. I can't remember.
Yes,
yeah, you brought that up. So the idea is that supposedly, right, he had paid somebody to switch with somebody else's body, and that he wouldn't actually die.
Can we stop at that point so I could argue that before you go on with the second one?
Well, no, I was actually just gonna say yes. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll wait for that part. But I was just gonna say I was gonna ask you, because I know the truth, and but I'd love for you guys to be the ones to explain what is the truth for that.
Yeah. So Jeff Mudgett, his grandson, right?
Correct.
Yeah, or great grandson.
I'm
not sure if it was
You're right, great.
Or he had a great show. What was it on the Discovery Channel? I think
it was. Sorry, it's
History.
called the American Ripper.
Yeah, so he was trying to link H.H. Holmes up with Jack the Ripper, which, man, I wanted to believe this so bad. I don't know why, but to me that gave me like great satisfaction to think that he was Jack the Ripper too.
For sure.
Yeah. But they exhumed his body in 2017, and they actually did DNA testing, and it turns out that is H.H. Holmes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, it is. I mean, it's on History Channel, by the way.
History Channel. That's it. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really interesting show.
History Channel, if you want to sponsor us, we would love to have you.
Yeah, but there's no. So we do have real evidence. Because he's family.
Yes.
So that he was able to get the court to let them exhume the body, and then they proved.
Yes, and I do believe that Jeff Mudgett wants to do further investigating at the site of the murder castle.
Yes, I believe
he wants to do some digging, but they have not allowed that yet.
Yeah, because he theorizes there might be more bodies or other things buried there.
Yes.
I'd actually heard that he may have found plans to the original murder castle.
Oh, wow.
And that's what he's trying to do. There are supposed to be some additional tunnels.
Ooh.
Well, it's really interesting. He wrote a book called Bloodstains, where he actually believes that his great-grandfather is haunting him and is trying to lead his searches, I believe.
Yeah. I don't know.
Jeff, if you're out there, we'd love to have you on the show. We'd love to have you say your point of view. I don't necessarily agree with everything that you're saying, but man, I'm so fascinated by it. It's so, I don't know why that brings me such satisfaction to think that he could have been Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, well, we just had some evidence about Jack the Ripper, so we'll see.
Yes.
But that's always going to be up for debate.
I think that was just a guy that happened to be with that girl.
Yeah, maybe.
I think so.
So yeah, you wanted to get on with your second point.
No,
there.
let me. Well, I just had a fun quote that Holmes had written to a reporter.
Yes.
About himself, and this is something. This is all under the not true. Like, I don't believe this is true, but I just think it's really interesting. He said, "I am convinced that since my imprisonment, I have changed woefully and gruesomely from what I was formerly in feature and figure. My features are assuming a pronounced satanical cast. My head and face are gradually assuming an elongated shape. I believe fully that I am growing to resemble the devil, that the similitude is almost complete.
Wow. Well, as I said, I think he wanted to sensationalize his story, and people were already calling him the devil. So
Yeah.
I believe that he was going with that concept. Like, I don't believe he was like werewolfing it into
Right.
into the devil. You know,
I don't either.
No.
I
I've seen
really-
Teen Wolf, and I saw how that transformation.
I think if that happened, we would have heard more people
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah,
it. So
I think he just enjoyed conning people, and he enjoyed
Yes.
sending people on wild goose chases. You know, he did that with the police when he was
Yeah. During the
in
break, you were
jail.
talking about that.
Yeah, he would suddenly admit to killing somebody and putting their body somewhere, and so of course the police were going to go and investigate it. But when they got there, of course, they found nothing.
Yeah.
But
That's why it took
that just gave him personal
a
joy.
lot of serial
Yeah.
killers, they do that. That's their power. They
Yeah.
like that.
a lot of killers do that.
Yeah.
Not just serial killers.
No, not just
They-
serial killers, but yeah.
Even people that have only killed once will do that sometimes. So
Yeah, so he was enjoying himself.
yeah,
In some way, he got like a satisfaction out of knowing that people were interested in his story and were going to. Maybe more people would show up to his execution then. They wanted to see the devil hang.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think he was writing a book while he
Yes.
was in prison too.
I think that's true.
So he would have ended up with more money to pay somebody, and maybe they
Yeah.
really would have gone through with it then.
yeah,
Maybe
right,
they would have actually helped him with his transformation into the devil, putting some makeup on him, a little shadow here. And
It was a little inside joke that he had.
yeah, maybe he's telling him, hey guys,
Right.
come on.
That's the guy in the cell next to me. You
Yeah.
notice his face is a little longer.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so let's move on to this. So this is related to the execution, this particular legend. So there's more legends associated with Holmes's execution that I think have more credibility than the fact that
Okay.
he like faked it.
Sure.
So one, just really quick to mention, is that lightning struck across the sky at the moment the rope snapped or whatever, like went down, which I think is just creepy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I couldn't find any necessarily proof of that, but
I have not seen proof of that either, but I have heard that before.
yeah.
But I really think that that's the media sensationalizing
That
it too.
could be.
I really believe that they made this into something that it was horrific. I mean, you know, him killing those children, that's horrible, but I really think that they pushed this further than what it really was.
Yeah, it sold papers.
It did, yes.
Yeah.
For like 5 cents a piece or something back
Yeah,
in those
it
days.
adds up.
Now it's like $18 for the newspaper. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, but that's not the legend
I
that I
know,
wanted to
I
talk
know.
about. So, supposedly, a bunch of the people associated with Holmes's execution died mysteriously after his death. Like a lot of them not long after his death. In other words, people claim that he continued to kill even after his death. So the first odd death was Dr. William K. Matten, a coroner's physician who had been a big witness at his trial. He died of blood poisoning shortly after Holmes. Some more strange deaths started to happen. The head coroner, Dr. Ashbridge, and the trial judge who had sentenced Holmes to death were both diagnosed with sudden and previously unknown deadly illnesses. Next, the superintendent of the prison where Holmes had been incarcerated committed suicide. The reason for his taking his own life was never discovered. Several weeks after the hanging, one of the priests who prayed with Holmes before his execution was found dead in the yard behind his church. The coroner ruled the death as uremic poisoning. I don't even know what that is, but according
I
to
think that's
reports,
to do with kidney function.
oh, maybe.
Yeah.
He had been badly beaten and robbed. A few days later, Linford Biles, who had been jury foreman at the Holmes trial, was electrocuted in a bizarre accident involving the electrical wires above his house. Then, the father of one of Holmes's victims was horribly burned in a gas explosion. And the remarkably healthy Pinkerton agent, Frank Geyer, suddenly became ill, but thankfully he pulled through.
Actually, he was a Philadelphia detective.
Oh, okay.
So he didn't work for Pinkerton, but he hired Pinkerton.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Not long after this, the office of the claims manager for the insurance company that Holmes had cheated, or one of them, he had cheated a lot of them, caught fire and burned. Everything in the office was destroyed except for a framed copy of Holmes's arrest warrant and two portraits of the killer. Many of those who were already convinced of a curse saw this as an ominous warning. So I just wanted to end this with a quote from Holmes himself. "I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer, no more than a poet can help the inspiration to sing. I was born the evil one, I was born with the evil one standing as my sponsor beside the bed where I was ushered into the world, and he has been with me ever since."
Wow.
So lots of deaths. Sorry, I just wanted to get through them all, but these all happened. These were all people that were related to his getting caught and being executed, and they all died after that, his execution.
I mean, I do think it's a really big coincidence that all these people died around that time, but I think we have to remember too that in the early 1900s that people died pretty early in life, and death was something that would happen pretty regularly. Like there wasn't safety codes, there wasn't as much concern for safety. There wasn't much thought for life back then. And I just think that maybe it is just a coincidence and it isn't really anything ghostly related to that. Like they didn't die the way that Holmes killed people. Like they didn't burn in a furnace or they weren't like gassed out. They died of all things that seem like ways people die.
They didn't fall into acid.
That we know of.
Mm.
So yeah, what are your thoughts, Mondo?
Well, yeah, it would make a good movie, with
Right?
all the people that died like that. But if you took it like case by case, for instance, like the doctor, earlier you mentioned that a lot of doctors would make their own concoctions. So he died of blood poisoning.
Yeah.
Is it possible that he was, mixing something that got transferred through his skin, or he drank something by mistake?
Most blood poisoning isn't caused from an external source. It's something that people are born with a genetic defect or a predisposition to have these kind of things. Most blood diseases are. He could have been a hemophiliac or something. We don't know. Because there wasn't like. I think they might have grouped together a lot of things that they considered to be blood poisoning.
Right.
I don't believe they really knew what we know now as far as some of the diseases that you can have of your blood.
Gotcha. Well, that kind of changes everything then. I mean, that was my theory. And
that was your theory?
Yeah. So now I'm flipping.
You're flipping house?
No, seriously, this is a lot of deaths to happen.
I mean, I tried to rationalize it and explain it that way, but
it is a lot of deaths. It
was a ghost.
I don't really have the ghost of Holmes. I really don't have much to defend this, just that I think that it could be a coincidence. And I would like us just to think of that for a second, that, this could be just all a big coincidence. It could be just all random events that would have occurred had Holmes not been in the picture too.
Maybe.
Right.
I mean, it's worth a thought.
Yeah.
But
the
I think it's
electrical lines were new too. I mean, they were putting in fresh electrical lines, and this is something brand new.
Yes.
So it can happen.
It can, yeah.
All right. So I have one more.
Okay.
We are finally coming close to the end of this episode.
Yeah, we still got to do closing arguments and
oh
everything.
My gosh.
Jeez.
Okay. All right. So we talked about the castle being haunted, But as you referenced this, that Holmes actually owned several other businesses,
Yes, he
some
did.
in Chicago. And one of them was a glass bending factory, which I don't even know for sure I don't know what bending, but okay. So glass bending factory. Now, Mysterious Chicago is a tour company owned by Adam Seltzer, the same guy who wrote the book that you referenced a lot for the history.
He's an awesome guy.
Yeah. So definitely we'll put a link out to their stuff and everything. So they do tours, and they do some that are like haunted tours, but a lot of them are also just tours of Chicago and like Mysterious Chicago. So like more focused on the weird macabre history, again, lots of gangsters, lots of places to go. And so one of the places that they would take tours for just those macabre things was this glass factory, because it was believed to be owned by Holmes on the north side of Chicago. Now it's not there anymore, and we can only kind of guess as to where it is. There's no real history or record of exactly the address of this place. So
actually, they had it in the American Rippers. They were at the place.
Oh, well, right. It's that area.
Yeah.
Well, they were,
It was right on the lake, and that's where they believed he dumped a lot of bodies.
Right. So they even went diving and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. But again, there's no official record, so we just have our best guess.
Yeah.
Right. But anyways.
Well, because he would buy places under other people's names too. So
Right.
it was hard to determine. Yeah.
Sure.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting.
That's
you
okay.
here.
So while they were doing tours, one of his tour guys actually called him and was like, "Hey, we're seeing some weird stuff." So they saw a light somewhere, and they couldn't explain the light. But more, I think, what's interesting is photos.
Yes, I've seen those photos.
Yeah. So I think I've sent both of you the photos.
Yes.
So I'll try to describe them. There's two. And again, we'll put them up on our website. But both of them have a black shadow figure in the photo. I think both of them, it kind of clearly looks like a person, but the one, Mondo, you pointed out, definitely looks more like a person.
Yeah, you can almost see the clothing, and it doesn't look like anything modern.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And there's a face.
Right.
Yeah. You can kind of see a face in there. So, but even the other one, if you look at it, you can kind of see like legs. I mean, it definitely has a human shape to it. So there's a woman standing there, and then they take the photo, and they didn't see this at the time. It wasn't like they were necessarily, I don't know if they were taking a photo of the shadow, but it just showed up in there. And then the other one, again, a bunch of people standing there looking at the spot, and then they took another picture kind of from a different angle. You can see the same building off to the right, but it's a different spot, and another shadow figure is standing there. So ghosts.
So first, before we get into anything, I would like to talk about the glass bending factory. Interesting tidbit there was never any glass bending that happened in this factory. So supposedly Holmes bought this place, and he was trying to get investors into the place, and he said that he developed a new way to bend glass. And he brought in one of his big furnaces that he was known to have, and they were like, "Okay, well, let's see what you can do." And days went by, and he didn't bend any glass. And then one day he's like, "Well, it's just going to take a while." So he had everybody leave. And the next morning when they came in, there was a piece of bent glass in there. But there was no ashes. There was no nothing to say that there was actually a fire. So he probably put that piece of bent glass in there just to throw them off, thinking that he would be clever.
We should have brought AJ on this episode.
Oh, he's a glass blower.
Yeah,
yes.
we have a friend who's studying this right now.
Yes.
I bet he could explain glass bending.
Yeah, I'm sure he can. So this is a very interesting story, and those pictures look very convincing to me. Although my thing about pictures is that I wasn't there, I didn't see it, and if I don't see it with my naked eye, I have a difficult time believing that these really happened. If it's just in photography, could it be something that was done by the camera when you took the picture? Can it be another picture superimposing on that. Me and Mondo have went back and forth about one picture that his friend sent him that I really, I mean, it looks really convincing, but I just, to me, that's not really evidence to support it. So it doesn't change my mind in that regard, but those pictures do look very convincing. And maybe we should reach out to Adam and see if we could use those pictures on our site.
Okay. Yeah. Well, otherwise we'll put a link at least to his website
absolutely.
so you can see it.
Yeah. I would like you guys to see it before you go vote and determine if you think it's real.
Yeah. Well, Mondo, what do you think? Do they look real to you?
I think they definitely look real. I mean, when you can look at something like that and see the detail, well, then that kind of makes you realize that you're not just looking at a smear on a camera, but you're looking at something that, I guess is unexplained, but I also noticed the appearance of the clothes. They look kind of dated, it looks saggy.
To me, it looks like a factory worker or something, like someone that did a lot of manual labor, like a jumpsuit kind of thing.
Somebody that did. So, yeah, you're believing that this possibly could actually have been somebody that would have been doing manual labor at a glass factory.
I'm just saying.
I like having Mondo on the show.
Yes.
I'm just saying that I have not done any I don't have the actual images, so I can't do any investigating as far as that goes to see if there was any photoshopping done. I don't believe that there was. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like something that someone would post on their website, but I'm just saying it could be superimposed from another picture. It could be a reflection of something else. I don't want to be too skeptical about it. I want you guys to decide. Yeah. I just want to say that this kind of evidence doesn't really change my mind. I find it interesting. I find it fascinating. I like looking at it, but it doesn't really make me a believer. I don't go to sleep scared. I would be happy to sleep in any building that they say is haunted because I just don't believe that.
Oh, we're totally doing that at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think you were talking about something about Halloween.
Oh, well, I did want to mention that the last few years, it seems that there's been a lot of H.H. Holmes themed haunted houses all around. And the Congress Hotel, which those of us in Chicago know, it's downtown Chicago,
which
known
could
for
haunted.
being haunted. We will do an episode on the Congress Hotel.
Yeah,
that Stephen King story about the hotel room is based on the hotel room. Lots of stuff. But they actually even did... because there's supposedly a story that people see Holmes's ghost at the Congress Hotel, whatever. We don't have time for it. But they even had like a haunted stay. Like you could stay there for in honor of Holmes. So anyways, if you like the story, when it comes Halloween time, take a look around. There's a good chance somewhere nearby you there might be a cool activity or thing you could do that's based on Holmes and his murder castle.
Yeah, I would like to say too, around Halloween time, there's a really good haunted house in Aurora called the Basement of the Dead.
Oh, it's one of the best.
Yeah, I used to work there, and those people are just amazing, and they put on a really good show.
A really good show that changes every year. They do not just do the same haunted house every year.
Yeah.
Like it's new. Like you can go every year because it's different.
And also, I'd like to give a shout out to hauntedillinois.com for showing us a lot of support on social media. They are amazing. I go to their site all the time. I can't wait to, for the Halloween season to start exploring some of
Mondo, go
stuff.
ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention, being that we're in the Chicago area and, you're on the skeptical side with the photographs, we ought to take a trip down there and take some photos ourselves.
To the Basement of the Dead?
No, actually to the glass
We will be doing a
factory.
Basement of the Dead episode.
To the glass factory, yeah.
Yeah,
that
we should
sounds
go
like
there.
A good idea.
Yeah.
All of us, we should get a group of us that take a bunch of different pictures and just look through them. So each of us have a different. This way, we were all there.
Have you ever been by that area?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's along the Chicago River, and it's right where City Front Fountain is. that
Sure.
is the location. Okay, for those
I
that
love
don't know,
how
it's
Mondo's just been everywhere.
He remembers every detail of every place he's ever been to.
I love it.
like a map of Chicago.
Yeah.
But here's the secret, okay? If there's a place that's good to eat that's like right around the corner, I will remember
So
that
what's the
location.
place that's good to eat around there?
Dick's Last Resort is
Oh,
about
yes,
half a
yes.
block away.
Is it the old Dick's or the new one?
It's the one
by House of Blues.
the one the old one.
The
That
old
is-
one.
Yeah.
Okay, then I've been there too. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
That's where you can get a boat tour and you could take a boat taxi too,
Yeah.
I believe.
And
Yes.
get chewed out at the same time.
Oh,
By
I
your-
think there's a story there.
There's a reason that they're called Dicks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
yes.
kind of live up to their name.
Yeah.
The waiters do.
Okay.
Yeah.
The staff.
Being that they seem like Richard.
Yeah. Well, just really quick, I want to go back to Haunted a little. I absolutely use that website. Like, we're not getting paid by them or anything. Like, I really do use that website. And when it comes time for Halloween and you're looking for things to do, or even not Halloween time, because we all love Halloween all the time,
Yeah.
they are a great place to go.
Okay, so let's get into our closing arguments. We're pushing 2 hours on this episode, so let's get this
do
done. So what we do is this closing argument gives each person 1 minute to do a final debate. We are not allowed to debate anything that they say during that 1 minute.
Make a final stand.
It's a final stand. It's
want
the
your vote.
final word. Yep. And we time each other. So I'm going to get my timer all set up and ready for Rebecca.
I got mine ready.
Okay, well, give me 1 second.
Yeah, this is going to be good. And remember, the poll is going to be on Facebook. And this time we'll have a third option since we have Mondo. All right,
Yep.
you ready?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go.
All right. So I did not realize how many ghost stories were associated with Holmes until I started to do the research. In fact, people had told me I wouldn't find anything. So I was shocked at how much I did find. And, but then again, I think I shouldn't be shocked because he was an evil person who did a lot of horrible things, killed a lot of horrible people, he killed people horribly. And that, as we know, is what causes ghosts, right? Causes that energy when you die this horrible death before your time, and you don't have that time or that ability to express your just your emotions with it. You have a tendency to stick around, and so it makes sense to me that there would be screams and hauntings and bad feelings, and I think there's just too many deaths. Oh
done.
man.
Do you want to finish your
Well,
point?
too many deaths associated with the curse after him. I just think it's real. So, Mondo, you ready to go next?
I am. It's just a little warm in here, so I'm just going to unbutton my shirt here for a minute.
Nice.
Just kind
What?
of sorry, but it's like
What? Okay, so last time I had a shirt on that spoke about my skepticism. So Mondo was wearing a ghost shirt.
I'm
and
also
so is
wearing my
Rebecca.
ghost shirt.
Time for a ghost adventure. What does your shirt say? Just ghost?
Ghost.
Like the band?
The band.
Oh, the band Ghost. So you're just a music fan. That's
it.
all. Yeah.
Well, my brother gave me mine. So
All right. You ready to go, Mondo?
I am.
All right. Let's get it started right now.
Okay, so we all know H.H. Holmes was an evil dude. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, he was, guilty of a lot of things. He loved to scam people. But more than anything, I mean, he killed people. He killed a lot of people. And I mean, yes, we're thinking that the numbers are less than what, we originally thought or what was reported in the news. But either way, there are a lot of people that are gone, and there probably are more than 9 victims. And I know I came across as a skeptic in this episode because, I kind of looked at things like the dogs and, the burning building that had been there. But if there is any place that could or should be haunted, it is probably the site of the murder castle. Because if so many bad things took place there and so many people died in such horrible manners, I mean, that should be the place.
All right. You made it right at the 1 minute mark.
perfect. Woohoo!
All right. So,
You
Rebecca,
ready,
you
Pat?
ready to time me?
Let's do it. And Go.
So I don't really know what I'm going to say in this 1 minute. I didn't prepare a closing argument this time because I wanted to see where the episode took me. And what I'm thinking is that if there was going to be a place that was going to be haunted, definitely this would be some place that I would suspect. Although I have not seen any physical evidence that supports this to me. Pictures are great, but I don't often believe them. That's just me. I don't mind you believing. I want you to believe. I want you to have fun with this, and I want you to take it to whatever level you want to be at. But for me, I'm still going to remain #Team Skeptic.
All right. You got 13 seconds.
#Team Skeptic is the best place to be. We have the best food. We have the best wine. Watch Game of Thrones.
Okay, perfect timing. All right.
All right. So I think that is our episode. It is going to be a long one, guys.
Yep.
I think this is going to be like an hour and a half. So
Okay.
after I get done with some of the editing, taking out all your great points. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. So I want to thank everyone so much for listening to Ghostly. We have a lot planned for the next few months. Please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to be updated. And we do have an email list that we don't talk about very often.
No, but it's really nice. You send out a super nice email.
Yeah, just once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just when the episode comes out. I really just focus on hey, this episode, here's some of the things you're going to hear. And then I will also tell you what the next episode is.
And it's a sneak preview.
Yeah, so by being on the email list, you are the first people to hear what the next episode's going to be about. So that's a reason to do it. We don't announce right away on Facebook because we'd like people to take some time to actually, absorb the episode that we did and appreciate it for what it was. Mm-hmm. So our next episode will be on Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
Waverly Hills, that's not where you want to be.
Mondo's new hit song. And it will come out on May 29th. So we're having 3 episodes this month, possibly a 4th if you guys want me to do that special edition of Ghostly that will not interfere with our episode schedule, but it will be just on H.H. Holmes.
Yep.
It was suggested by the Waverly Hills episode has been suggested by a longtime friend and current listener, Mike Morrissey, and we can't wait to talk about it. We did do an interview with him and used some of that interview in our Shadow People episode that was way back in episode, 6?
Something.
Yeah, we're at episode 15 now.
Yeah,
so
right?
We've had this in the can for a long time. We just couldn't fit it in. We've got so many ghost stories we want to tell you guys.
I know, but we love it when listeners send us suggestions, and we really do want to try to fit in as many as we can. And this is one of them. So I'm excited.
So Mondo, you have anything going on that you'd like to talk about?
Sure. I also am a musician, and I'm
a good musician at that.
And thank you. I've been involved in a few different projects.
Like Dry Roasted Peanuts?
Yeah, that was a great
day.
band. Yeah. We were going to tour with the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah,
Isn't that the band you want to see with them?
Why did we call them Dry Roasted Peanuts?
Dry Roasted.
Yeah, there was a movie. It's stupid, Mark, but okay. Anyways.
But so anyway, I'm currently working on completing an album that I'm going to release on iTunes. Right now, I only have a single that's on iTunes under the band Life Bomb. And later this year, I plan on releasing a full album.
So what kind of music is this?
Kind of music that you want to listen to, or that belongs in a scary movie or stuff that, it's mainly instrumental stuff. It's, a lot of keyboard and electronic, but just, something to set the mood, before you get ready to listen to Ghostly. And, this is the kind of music
we could even feature one of your songs in one of our episodes.
Ooh, definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, and we'll definitely drop a link when it comes out. Do you have any idea the time frame of when it's coming out?
Probably the end of summer, right?
After the Boys of Summer are done?
Yep. That's the perfect time to release it. Yes.
It is, definitely. All right, guys. Yeah. So I wanna thank you, Mondo, for coming on the show.
I want to thank you guys for having me. And I love this show. I love the point of view that you guys that you guys and the arguments you guys present, the story, the history. Just keep it up. I love it. And I know Mike Morrissey is a great storyteller when it comes to that stuff. He is,
and he has a DJ voice too. I don't know if you knew this, but
yeah, he kind of does.
He's like, "Hey guys, welcome to." Man, he's awesome. Though.
Yeah, and
shout out to Mike Morrissey.
He actually travels to a lot of these places.
Yes, he does.
He goes there. I mean, just to get the vibe of the place, and
And he was a skeptic too at one time.
He was.
And then, Waverly Hills converted him, I think.
Ooh, now I'm intrigued.
So I want this to convert me.
Yeah. So, you know what? You just need to do the legwork. You need to get out there and go to these places. And I think, a year's time from now, we might be talking to a completely different Pat Harrington. He might be.
And then we have to find a skeptic.
Exactly.
Well, it is our plan. We do want to do some more traveling. We're actually going to Orlando in a few weeks. So if anyone has any ghosty things we could see there.
Disney haunts.
Yeah, exactly. We're definitely going to try to look some of those up. So
yeah, we keep saying that.
We will.
Yeah.
We've been working on this.
Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. And we will see you next time. Remember to stay ghostly.
Bye.
Bye.